Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 94 of the James Layton Fitness Podcast. Now, in this specific podcast, we'll be discussing the question, what is the best type of cardio for fat loss? And unfortunately, this is a classic question that I get all the time, or similar variations of this question, what is the best X for fat loss? What is the best X for muscle growth? And the reality is, it all depends on context. There's no single best solution. It all depends on the individual's goals, their lifestyle, etc. You cannot say whether one is better than the other without actually taking into account context. And what is the best type of cardio for fat loss? Again, it ignores context. The reality is there's lots of different options you can choose as your cardio type within a fat loss phase. However, within this specific podcast, I'll be discussing lots of different things that should help you choose which type of cardio sessions you can use within a fat loss phase, if you do decide to use cardio within a fat loss phase. Now, firstly, I think it's critical to realise, as I've spoken about many times before, is weight training needs to be the foundation of our routine within a fat loss phase. Remember, we have two main objectives within the fat loss phase. One, to obviously lose as much body fat as possible, and the second is to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. So therefore, this is what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on trying to maintain your gym performance as much as possible when you're deciding what type of cardio to use, where you're placing your cardio in relation to your weight training sessions, because this will make a massive difference. So for example, one thing I would not suggest doing is placing your cardio sessions immediately before the weight training sessions. The reason why is strength will be impeded by you doing this, just because you'll be fatigued from the cardio sessions prior to the weight training session. As such, you'll lose strength in the fat loss phase and therefore lose muscle mass. So make sure firstly the cardio sessions you are putting in place within a fat loss phase are either after the weight training session, on one of your rest days from your weight training sessions, or another time of the day completes. That's the first thing to consider. Make sure that you're not placing that cardio session immediately before the weight training. And then all the rest of the things I'm going to talk about again are just focused around maintaining that gym performance. Your decision making should be based around trying to maintain your gym performance, your strength, and therefore that'll better maintain muscle mass. Another big thing to think about, I don't want you to be doing lots of endurance type training. I don't suggest doing 1-2 hour cardio sessions, because one of the big reasons for this is when you're doing lots of endurance type training like that, you're going to see an endurance adaptation which is counterproductive to us being able to maintain muscle mass and strength within the gym. So try and stay away from these long drawn out endurance type cardio sessions. So that's the next thing to think about. The next thing I want to think about is the minimum effective dose. One great way to preserve your gym performance, your strength, and therefore preserve muscle mass is using the minimum effective dose. And by that I mean, as soon as you reach a fat loss plateau, I want you to apply the minimum amount of cardio necessary to bust through that plateau, or reducing calories only very slightly to bust through that plateau. Again, the reason why we're doing this is to preserve that gym performance. So for example, if you reach a fat loss plateau and then all of a sudden you're going from 0 to 7 days a week cardio sessions, you're going to lose a lot of muscle mass and strength very quickly. So use a minimum effective dose, i.e. just one cardio session when you reach a plateau. This could be, say, for example, a 10-minute HIIT session, or a 40-minute low-intensity steady-state session, e.g. a incline walk on the treadmill, or a moderate intensity session but not for too long, for example 20 minutes of run or a cycle, for example. But again, you're not doing it for an extended period of time. So that's the next thing to think about. Minimum effective dose. Just apply one cardio session when you reach a fat loss plateau, as opposed to applying 3, 4, 5, 6 new cardio sessions into your week. The next thing to think about is time. You don't want to be adding in a cardio session that you cannot adhere to for the long term, and that's why, for the most part, it's better to focus on slightly shorter cardio sessions. That's why the 10-minute HIIT sessions, when you're doing intervals, whether it be on the treadmill, the rower, or the bike, for example, 30 seconds as fast as you can, rest for 30 seconds, repeat for the 10 minutes. The great thing about this is it's only for a short period of time. Most people can adhere to this. Conversely, if you do another kind of long drawn out cardio session, it's very difficult to stick to for the long term. So that's the next thing to think about, is time and adherence. Next thing to think about is injuries. If you have a specific injury to a certain body part, for example, if you have a hamstring injury, I wouldn't suggest doing sprints on the treadmill, a HIIT session on the treadmill. It might be better to go on the rowing machine, or potentially something low impact like the bike, for example. So that's the next thing to consider, is if you have an injury, trying to work around those as best you can when adding in cardio sessions. Next thing to think about is just what you enjoy. If you enjoy certain types of cardio, you're probably more likely to stick with that for the long term, and therefore that's worth considering as well. For example, I have some clients who do martial arts, and therefore we use those martial arts sessions as our cardio sessions. They're already doing the sessions, and they're great tools just to burn calories. The final thing you need to remember is within the fat loss phase, the cardio sessions, the only role they have, if you do include cardio within the fat loss phase, is just tools to burn calories. That's the only goal, and as such, there's many different tools you can do to burn calories. But the premise of the podcast is to remember to focus on that big overarching objective of trying to maintain our gym performance and strength. So therefore, whenever you're considering adding a cardio session, come back to that question: is this going to impede my weight training? It's probably not worth doing. For example, those long drawn out endurance type trainings, doing cardio sessions before the weight training session, and additionally trying to do something you cannot adhere to for the long term. The final thing I want to discuss is don't rely too much on high intensity interval training. It can be a great tool for fat loss, for burning lots of calories in a short space of time. However, by using too much of it, it requires similar recovery as weight training, and therefore you want to try and use a multitude of different cardio sessions as opposed to just relying on one. So hopefully that's helped. Hopefully that's given you lots of ideas on how you can apply some of these different types of cardio sessions. Remember, when you're considering adding an extra session, come back to that main question: is this going to have an impact on a negative impact on my weight training performance? But thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download that immediately. Thank you very much.